Welcome to this explainer. There's this stubborn myth that the ancient world was just a bunch of isolated empires, completely cut off from one another. Well, today, we're going to completely shatter that idea. Forget everything you thought you knew about disconnected civilizations, because we're going to follow in the footsteps of a nearly forgotten Greek ambassador named Dionysius. We'll see exactly how his incredible journey bridges the gap between the Hellenistic world and ancient India, painting a picture of an era that was far, far more globally connected than we ever imagined.
So let's just dive right in. Historians have gone back and forth on this one big question for centuries. Was ancient India really this isolated subcontinent walled off by the Himalayas and vast oceans? Or was it actually the beating heart of a massive global network of trade, diplomacy, and shared knowledge? Well, spoiler alert, the evidence heavily points toward a seriously vibrant, interconnected global stage.
All right, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll look at the roots of ancient globalization and Dionysius, trace the path from Egypt to the Mauryan Empire, dig into India-Egypt trade, explore his lost accounts, see how he stacks up against other Greek envoys, and finally, check out ancient India's incredible global footprint.
Part 1. Ancient Globalization and Dionysius.
To really get Dionysius, we've got to set the geopolitical stage. Picture this, it's 323 BCE. Alexander the Great has just died, and his massive empire absolutely fractures. His generals carve up the territories, right? This leads to the rise of the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt, specifically under a guy named Ptolemy II Philadelphus. Meanwhile, way over in India, this incredible superpower is consolidating its own grip, the Mauryan Empire. Now, these weren't two distinct worlds just ignoring each other. No way. These were heavyweights, and they were highly aware of one another.
Moving on to Part 2, from Egypt to the Mauryan Empire.
So, our guy Dionysius likely kicked off his diplomatic mission in Alexandria, Egypt. And Alexandria, it wasn't just some run-of-the-mill city. It was the absolute ultimate Hellenistic hub. Imagine this bustling metropolis just overflowing with scholars, geographers, and diplomats from all over the known world, all anchored by the legendary Great Library. Honestly, it was the perfect launching pad for a highly educated, high-ranking diplomat like Dionysius, who Ptolemy II specifically sent to establish formal ties with India.
But here's the thing, reaching India back then was literally no walk in the park. We're talking months, maybe even years of travel. He had to navigate these incredibly treacherous maritime routes down the Red Sea or survive grueling overland paths cutting straight through Persia and Central Asia before finally entering the subcontinent through the Indus Valley region. I mean, think about the massive investment of time, resources, and sheer human endurance that took.
Which brings us to Part 3, trade between India and Egypt. So why go through all that trouble? Well, the answer is staggering wealth. India was literally the ultimate source of high-demand goods for the Hellenistic world. They were exporting insanely valuable stuff, spices, ivory, cotton, dazzling gems, and indigo. And in return, the Greek and Egyptian markets were pouring in wine, precious metals, and high-end manufactured luxury goods. Make no mistake, Dionysius wasn't just there to say a quick hello. He was there to secure and expand a highly lucrative economic pipeline, a pipeline that was making both of these empires unimaginably rich.
All right, Part 4, Dionysius's lost accounts.
Now here is where my heart honestly breaks a little bit as a history nerd. We don't actually have his original manuscript. It's lost to time. Historians consider this one of history's great tragedies, and for good reason. We're forced to rely completely on fragments and citations made by much later Greek or Roman writers who happened to read his work before it vanished. But even just these surviving fragments are absolutely fascinating.
Based on those later references, we can piece together a sort of reconstructed table of contents for his lost book. He clearly analyzed the complex Indian social structure in deep detail, and he was apparently blown away by the strict, highly organized Mauryan administration. He specifically took notes on their complex tax systems, their massive standing army, and, get this, their intricate network of spies. I mean, just imagine a Greek diplomat trying to figure out an ancient Indian espionage ring. He also wrote extensively about the fascinating philosophies of Brahmins and Buddhists, plus the sheer, mind-boggling natural wealth of the land.
But maybe one of the wildest aspects of his records was the Greek obsession with what they basically saw as the ultimate superweapon, war elephants. Dionysius heavily documented these massive animals. They were a highly prized Indian export that literally revolutionized Hellenistic battle tactics. Seriously, to the Greeks and Egyptians, securing a trade route for Indian war elephants was like securing a supply line for modern-day tanks. It was absolutely crucial for total military supremacy.
Let's move to Part 5,
Comparison with other Greek envoys.
When we zoom out and look at the historical timeline, Dionysius wasn't acting alone. He actually fits into a really vital ongoing roster of ambassadors. First you had Megasthenes, sent by Seleucus to the court of Chandragupta Maurya. Then came Diomachus, sent by an Assyrian ruler to Bindusara. And, finally, our man Dionysius, sent by Ptolemy II to the Mauryan ruler, most likely during the legendary era of Ashoka. What this tells us is that these diplomatic channels between the Mediterranean and India weren't just random one-off visits. No, they were formal, sustained, and highly structured over generations.
And that brings us to our final section, Part 6, Ancient India's Global Footprint. You see, these ambassadors, they weren't just politicians shaking hands and trading pleasantries. They were the catalysts for a massive shift in global dynamics. Because of envoys like Dionysius, we saw a total explosion in maritime and overland trade that would eventually peak during the Roman era. We saw deep cultural and philosophical contact, the rapid spread of scientific and astronomical knowledge, and a major expansion in the geographical mapping of the known world. They quite literally put each other on the map.
And honestly, this perfectly defines ancient globalization. It's not just a trendy modern buzzword, right? It's the deep historical interconnectivity of distant civilizations. It proves, without a doubt, that ancient India, Egypt, and the Greek world were deeply intertwined in a shared, breathing global system. They were trading goods, swapping philosophies, and literally shaping each other's military strategies. Far from isolated, India was absolutely central to the ancient world order.
So, I want to leave you with one final kind of provocative thought. Just imagine, somewhere out there, buried deep in the sands of Egypt, or maybe in the ruins of a forgotten library, the original text of Dionysius might still exist. If historians suddenly unearth his complete original manuscript tomorrow, finally uncovering the unfiltered thoughts of a Greek spy, diplomat, and scholar living right in the court of Ashoka, well, how much of our ancient global history would we have to completely rewrite? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next deep dive into the past.